I got these stackable boxes at the thrift store. What's on the top? Is that a lion? Was it a fleur-de-lis? I don't know. They used to have candy in them. That's what their purpose was beforehand, but I didn't find any candy in them when I don't know that I would eat candy that I found in a thrift store box. It's never been presented to me before. I have had a donut at a thrift store. But that's not, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is that I'm redoing these boxes. I'm painting each box with a tartan pattern on top and kind of a bright poppy color and a Wes Anderson color palette, if you will. And you will. You will. Listen up, because I'm about to give you a very hot tip. So you'll notice in almost all of my projects, I use those Behr paint sample cans. And the reason for that is because out where I live in the desert, there isn't a craft store. So I don't have acrylic paints on hand. So if I'm doing a craft project, I need to go into the Home Depot, roll into the deep, if you would, and get a custom paint can, which is kind of nice, honestly, because they are bigger than the acrylics. They last longer. I only need one coat. At this point, I decided, well, I can't just paint the exterior of these boxes. I have to paint the interiors. But what about this tiny box? What if this tiny box had like a checkerboard floor pattern? So I took tiny little blue tape and I put it on there and I stenciled out this little tiny checkerboard. And then I was like, but it can't just have a checkerboard pattern. It also has to have a tiny little wallpaper. So I took some glue and some water and some fabric that I had on hand and I dunked it in some glue and pasted my wallpaper on. I was like, well, obviously this is going to be a tiny little trophy room. So I need tiny little shelves for my tiny little trophies. Look, I don't have any tiny trophies, but I could make tiny trophies. So I did a glue up and then I was like, okay, I'm going to pinch this all together with clothespins. That's how I clamped it and make tiny trophies. But then my tiny trophies looked kind of dumb. They didn't look good. At this point I thought, okay, well, I'm going to need some plants at least in here. So I'll just make some plants and then we'll come back to the tiny trophies. So I took some twisty ties that I got at the grocery store and I took the plastic off of them. And then I took some masking tape and I wrapped it around and cut out a little leaf shape. And then I took my Behr paints and I painted this little leaf on it. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is who I am for the rest of my life. I went nuts. I made so many little plants. I couldn't stop. The only thing that stopped me was the size of this tiny room. But then I couldn't see all my plants. So I thought, okay, well, of course I need to make a tiny little lamp for my tiny little plants. So I took a bead and I had glued it on and some fairy lights and then stuck it all through. And here's the reveal. I did a stop motion. Remember, the point of this is that I thrift flipped these boxes. But here's the real point. Every time I see it, wow, I'm just amazed. I love it so much. I want to live in this tiny little room, please. And here's a picture with a penny for scale if you didn't believe. It's tiny.